When Giannis hyperextended his knee on this play last year and only missed 2 games, it was one of the most improbable comebacks I've seen in sports medicine. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and this is your #1 source for learning about the unique medical side of the world of sports. Giannis's hyperextension last year was truly one of the worst degrees of hyperextension that I've seen in any sports injury. The knee is meant to stop whenever you get into this plane in line with the femur. Some people have some natural degree of hyperextension, but it's minimal compared to the severity with which we saw Giannis's knee hyperextended last year. As that knee goes from that initially neutral position to further and further and further hyperextended, there's additional force put on these structures in a sequential manner throughout the knee that can ultimately result in these ligaments failing, things as severe as an ACL or a PCL rupture. Giannis recently shared some additional comments about the severity of the injury in an article in The Athletic with Sam Amick. He said that if his knee hyperextended one more time, he was done. That was it. Specifically, he mentioned there was something that was already torn, the piece that protects him from something like an MCL or an ACL tear. There's a thing in your leg that protects you when you hyperextend your knee that doesn't let it go all the way back, and that thing was completely torn. My suspicion is he's talking about one of 2 specific structures in the knee that we often never talk about on this channel. We have both active and passive stabilizers to help protect our joints. Active stabilizers are the muscles. So in the case of the knee hyperextension, the hamstring muscles are going to fire to flex the knee to prevent it from hyperextending forward. But then we have passive stabilizers, tissues that don't fire and don't dynamically change, that are just structurally inert, there to help protect the joint. The first of those that we don't typically talk about is the joint capsule. This is sort of the outermost layering of that joint that again provides some passive stability to that joint. It's easy to understand how if the leg hyperextends, meaning the foot comes out further this direction, what that's going to do is it's going to put tension on the backside of the capsule, potentially tearing that capsule. This is often something we see with a knee hyperextension, is actual tearing of that capsule that lines the joint. The second thing he might be referring to is a ligament called the oblique popliteal ligament. Popliteal because it's in the backside of the knee, or a region that we call the popliteal fossa, and oblique, of course, because it runs at this angle. Interestingly enough, cadaver studies have been performed where they sequentially cut different tissues and structures throughout the knee. One of those they cut is this oblique popliteal ligament. Another that they'll cut is actually the ACL and the PCL deeper inside the knee. And what they found is that you have the most resulting ability to hyperextend the knee when you cut this oblique popliteal ligament. So out of all of the different ligaments, the ACL, PCL, MCL, etc. in the knee, this popliteal oblique ligament tends to be the one that provides the most restraint to hyperextension. It's also one that we don't typically think about acutely repairing whenever it's torn. It's kind of one of these less understood ligaments in the knee compared to something like the ACL, the MCL, or the LCL. Think of this ligament as a piece of tape running across the backside of the joint. Whenever you flex the knee or bend the knee back up in this direction, you're just going to make that tape nice and lax. But whenever you hyperextend or kick the leg forward, you're going to tension that tape. You're going to make everything tight on the backside of the knee. So that's what this popliteal oblique ligament is doing. It's tightening that backside of the knee. It's certainly possible that this structure was completely torn, maybe in addition to the capsule. And so then what happens is you lose that initial restraint, and the restraint falls on the subsequent structures like the PCL and the ACL, 2 injuries that are going to be a lot more severe if suffered on the basketball court. Giannis really was playing on a knee that had lost its initial restraint to hyperextension, meaning if he had another hyperextension injury, all of that load would fall on ligaments like the ACL and the PCL. As he pointed out in that same article, there was a play in game 1 where Giannis went out to challenge a 3 here by Jay Crowder, and pay attention to that left leg, the leg that was injured. As Giannis comes forward here, Crowder's right leg comes out, and you can see right there, Giannis almost has another severe hyperextension. The fact that he was already falling forward and that left foot sort of released up off the court made this less severe than it could have been. But this certainly could have been a catastrophic injury for Giannis that would have affected not only the rest of his NBA Finals, but potentially caused him to miss this whole year, if in fact something like his ACL would have been torn. There are some real mysteries to me in sports medicine, and one of which is how in the world with this degree of hyperextension, Giannis only missed 2 games. This is one of those moments that can really change a player's career if something more serious like a bad ACL tear or multi-ligament knee injury had been suffered. And so we'll probably look back on this moment as one of the defining times when Giannis's career could have gone in an entirely different direction. That's it for the video, everybody. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later.